right, gentlemen, these are in the house.
Cousin Marv, thanks for the drink, huh?
Thanks a lot, Marv.
In Brooklyn, money changes hands all night long. And it's not the kind of money that you can deposit in a bank.
You hand over drop.
But all that money needs to end up somewhere. They call it a drop bar. You just hide the entire city's dirty money right in plain sight.
All your money in the bag.
Do you know what you're doing? Do you know whose money you're jacking?
You don't see anything? Nah, you know, that's this neighborhood, right?
I heard that Cousin Marv doesn't own the bar. Some hard guys do. You're not a hard guy.
Yeah, we had a crew back in the day when we was young. And Marv, he thought he was a tough guy. Then the neighborhood changed. It wasn't enough to be tough no more. You know, you had to be mean.
You know this guy?
No.
Find my money. Find my money.
You need to see this, Marv.
No, I don't need to see what's in that bag.
No, don't look at that. Don't look at it.
You're still in the life.
No. No, I just tend the bar.
Did you ever go around to the front of the bar and take a look at the names on the sign? Oh, that's my name, because I used to own it once.
They pressed, you blinked, it's over. It's been over for a while now. I'm not this, and I'm not them.
Where is your cousin Marv?
And if you
Sit down.
then teach them all
When I walked into a place people sat up straight, they noticed. I was respected. I was feared. And that meant something.
Are you doing something desperate? Are you doing something that we can't clean up this time? There's some sins that you commit that you can't come back from.
Straight ahead. We squeeze in on that side there, please. There you go, thank you. Just all the way to this way, guys, please. Straight ahead, please. Okay. There you go. This way, please. Come just straight ahead. And good,
Oh. You only want to take a photo? Yeah.
I want to thank Toronto for raising me to love movies.
Everyone has a big imagination. All of us do.
This is exciting. My first film to premiere here at the Toronto Film Festival. It's an exciting night.
You are the most globally exciting festival in the world.
Hello and welcome to the press conference for The Drop. A few points before we begin. This press conference will be streamed live at www.tiff.net, and still photographs will be made available on TIFF's media site. Volunteers are in the audience with microphones to assist you with your questions. Please remember to identify yourself and your media outlet. Please note, no photographs in this press conference area. Only the pre-approved wire services may take photography. And if you do so, please from the first row back. If you could take a moment to turn your cell phones to silent. Our moderator for today is Eric Kohanek, and it is now my pleasure to welcome the director, screenwriter, and cast from The Drop.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Eric Kohanek. I'm your moderator today for today's press conference for The Drop, which is a TIFF special presentation. Had its public premiere last night at the Princess of Wales Theatre and had another public screening today at noon. With us today, we have the director of the film, Michel R. Roskam. Next to Michel, we have Tom Hardy, who plays Bob the bartender in the film. Next to Tom, we have Numi Rapaz, who plays the role of Nadia, Bob's girlfriend in the film. Next to Numi, we have Matthias Schoenaerts, who plays the role of Eric Deeds, the evil Eric Deeds. And last but certainly not least, we have...
No, it's my ex-boyfriend. He's not evil. He's just complicated.
Complicated.
Last but not least, we have Dennis Lehane, who is the screenwriter of the movie. If you have any questions, we have volunteers there. Please put up your hands and we'll grab a microphone. We'll start off. Obviously, one of the prominent people in the movie was the late James Gandolfini. And Michel, I wonder if you could talk a bit about what it was like to work with him, and I know that you put a little dedication to him at the end of the credits.
I mean, first of all, he's a great actor, great artist, and also a wonderful man. It was great to work with him. It was it's such an honor to be a director and having to see this man, icon, and one of the greatest actors of his generation, perform so close to you and see it happening. You're looking at your little video monitor and he's there, and then you say cut, and he's that great man who's there, and was very inspiring, I think, for all of us. And it was just a great honor. Yeah.
We have a question down here in the front, if we can get a microphone to Bruce. In the meantime, can you talk a bit about assembling the cast for this then, and how did the cast come together?
Well, first when I read the script, was first of all, that's where it all starts, when you start thinking of who would be right for all the parts. And it was in the beginning, I was still with the producers, getting together, and we were gonna make a kind of a list, but we never came to a list. It was immediate. I had like all these pictures on the wall, and there was this one guy staring at me, and that was Tom Hardy. So I said, "There's no list. Tom's got to be Bob." And they said, like, "Well, great choice." And then we Skyped. He was doing Mad Max at the time. You were in South Africa, and I was in Belgium, and we Skyped, talked for 2 hours.
Yeah, longer.
Longer, yeah. It was, well, maybe it was longer because you were closer to the South Pole, and I was, and I was closer to the, no. But it was really, and then Tom, you said, yeah, right away, said yes. I knew that James was very interested in doing the part, and that was the first guy also, when I was reading it, I was, okay, James Gandolfini for Cousin Marv. That was like the same, Dennis had the same thought, that was always his idea as well. And then, of course, you start composing you're the rest of the characters, and you had like some kind of a wish list, you have to be, that's how it works. But what I didn't know was that, of course, luckily in my wish list there was Numi. I mean, I'm a great fan and I love her work. And so that was on Tom's, because I like to go in a dialogue with the actors, because I need them to feel comfortable and feel that their chemistry will work with the other actor. And Tom right away said like, Nooms, and what I didn't know at the time was that Numi loved the script, waiting to check out who was going to direct it, find out I was doing it, then heard that I was talking to Tom and they were friends and they want to work together. So even before we talked, actually, it was already decided. I was like, I didn't know that she was actually already said yes. And that was like an amazing, we came to Brussels, we met 4 hours of talking. Next day, another 4 hours of talking. This like 2 times 4 is indeed, it's 8. That was like, it just bam, 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 Jim said, and then of course my buddy Matthias. We did Bullhead together, and we were just, hoping to work soon again. And I remember we were in LA at the time of the Oscar campaign, with the nomination of Bullhead. We were sharing an apartment, reading scripts, and I was like, this is a good one. And then he read it. So when I got the movie, called him, and it was becoming real, because of course Tom and Nooms were now, part of the team. I called him like, this is really gonna happen, you know. Do you have a moment? Do you want to do this? Yeah, do you want to work and, you know, remember that Eric Deeds character? He's like, yeah. So what do you think? And he's like, right on, you know, let's do this. And so it's like, it's a great gift.
That's not true.
What? What? That's not true.
No, because when I met you in Brussels, and I was like, because I loved Bullhead so much, and I was like, then I asked you about Matthias, and you said, no, he's not available.
Oh, yes, of
Yeah.
course. But it was not about, okay, but then he became available.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't, he
Because
really
he
became
was like-
available, you know.
No, don't you remember? I was like, no, because I remember I said to you, like, I'll go and like, I can travel and meet him and convince him to
Oh,
like
yeah,
leave
yeah.
everything
No, that's
else
not
and come and
true.
do this.
Okay, you guys can get, you know, you pick the story, whatever you like, you know. No. So, but then, of course, he was part of it, and then John Ortiz was also one of the, I mean, there was someone I was immediately thinking of, because originally he was an Irish police officer.
He was originally an Irish police officer, and then they asked me to change him to something non-Irish. Basically, when we moved it to Brooklyn, they said we want to write a little bit more about the new Brooklyn, and so we changed him to Puerto Rican. And the moment I began writing him as Torres, as opposed to I think his name was like Hurley or something, I started seeing Ortiz in my head, and I'm like a big character actor geek, and I was like, I could see him. And then when you guys said, then there was that weird Elizabeth Rodriguez story.
Yeah.
That was bizarre. Elizabeth Rodriguez plays a very small part in the film. She plays the cop that Torres kind of gets his information from. And I had just seen the play, The Motherfucker with the Hat. And after I saw it, when I was writing Torres, even though she has a name that doesn't sound necessarily Puerto Rican, I knew that she had been married to somebody with the name Torres, and I knew she was Puerto Rican. And I wrote her thinking of Elizabeth Rodriguez. And then the first day of shooting, which I had nothing to do with, I get a call, oh, here's the first day of shooting. We wrapped a scene with Elizabeth Rodriguez. And I'm like, as who? And it just turned out. It was just a nice little kismet. So
Yeah, of course.
Question down here, Bruce.
That's mental, because I put
Yeah.
Elizabeth's name in the hat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
because
realize
Brett, her partner, is my son's godfather.
Oh, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all, 3 degrees, man.
It was yeah, you see this, all
6
these stories,
degrees.
how this was magic, right? I mean,
Yeah, a lot of magic went in here.
A lot of magic.
No, that's not right, actually.
Down front.
Yeah, Bruce Kirkland from the Toronto Sun. I'd like to start with Dennis Lehane, but I'd like to hear from the 3 actors too. You have a real keen interest in the criminal underbelly of a city like Boston, now moved to Brooklyn. Right. I'm curious what that fascination is for you, to express it again in this particular project, and how the 3 actors relate to the kind of worlds that he has created, and now you're in one of them for this film.
What I'm mostly fascinated with is, I think I'm keenly fascinated with the battle between the haves and the have-nots. I think it's a rigged game. I think it always has been. And I am interested in the have-not side of that argument, because that's how the people I grew up with. The have-nots tend to express themselves at moments of great pain with violence, because it's the only weapon they really have available. It's not the violence of a corporation. They can't take you out with a pen. They can't take you out with a law. They can't take you out with Citizens United. They can't buy a court. So what you get is Ferguson. And that's what I write about at the end of the day. And that's what I'm fascinated about. And the reason I think I gravitate towards noir is, noir to me is just, it's the difference. All noir is working class tragedy. It's the difference between noir and Shakespeare is the heights that they fall from. A king falls from a great height. In noir, the hero falls from the side of a curb. It's not a long drop, but it's just as painful. And at the end of the day, that's the world I write about. That's the best I can explain it.
It's so hard to speak after that man, because he's like,
I fell off a curb
just like,
once.
I can listen to you for hours.
I said, that's not true. I didn't fall off a curb. I was pushed by circumstances.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated in characters that I don't get the opportunity to speak their voice. I find the most interesting characters are normally hidden under rocks and pushed into small corners of society where they don't often have their voice heard. So yeah, and I like to look into characters that don't normally get looked into.
Yeah, I think that someone like Nadia, for me, it's, when the deeper you get into like the character and you start to look into the world, you don't see it from the outside perspective anymore. Like, and I realized that the thing that I needed to understand and to find was the love to Eric Deeds, because he's a part of that world, like the criminal, like the dark, like the kind of the violent, the violence and the destructive. It's like a scene of people doing things that are kind of desperate, and I needed to understand her love for him, because that's where everything starts, and that's what he's the one that puts the puppy in my trash that leads you to me, and so. And then, when you start to look into it and then you see colors, you think it's black and white, and all of a sudden you start to see colors in a person. And, it becomes, you realize that it's much more. It's not like, that's what I love about your world. It's like, none of them are really good or bad. It's just like people, and they do different things, and they end up doing bad things if they are, if they have less to lose in a way.
So now I'm the next in line. Well, it all comes down to, I think I totally agree with what everyone said here. And it all comes down to trying to give a voice to the voiceless, I guess, and try to humanize people that are often demonized. Does that wrap it up a little? No. Yeah?
Oh, nice.
No. Beautiful.
Another question down front here.
Liam Lacey from the Globe and Mail. On this subject of voices, we know that Brooklyn's multicultural, but it's not usually English, Belgian, and Swedish. I'm curious about how, did you have one dialect coach? I mean, you're a group of people who grew up within blocks of each other. Did you each have your own dialect coaches? How did that work out?
We had the same, an amazing guy, Jerome, that we worked with.
Just one dialect. What?
Yes.
Womp, womp, womp.
Jerome, what's
you know what I mean, right?
Expand on that a little.
Sorry. Sorry. I was like waiting for that nickel, euro, dollar, whatever that was rolling, like ding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it worked. Right.
What was
like
his
Tom
last name?
stole it.
Jerome's last name?
Butler.
Yes.
Jerome Butler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what the first thing, of course, I mean, I'm Belgian, and okay, I have to admit, I was worried, like, am I going to be able to portray a world where I never grew up in? I'm from Europe, and so, but then again, I kind of felt that the universe was already so well, I mean, it's a small universe where we're going into, and there's similarities. So when I arrived in Brooklyn, we were looking for a bar to shoot in, and so I saw so many bars, and also that was the luck, because society is reflected very much by the people you find in bars. It's like an anthropological study, and that's where I started to hear that there is, of course, the Brooklyn English, that with that Brooklyn accent, but there was almost a minority. There was so many other accents and languages going on, and Brooklyn is huge. So the more I was like traveling around from bar to bar to bar, looking for a bar and another one, and so I became more and more comfortable about it. And at some point, Tom and we went to this poker game.
We had that homicide detective as well that wanted to take us out, riding around, I got this card in my pocket. Like, carry on.
And, so we had like, you know, good people, and we had like the owner of the bar where we finally shot was an ex-fireman with lots of policemen, officers, friends. He invited us for a poker game. So, and that's where we heard the talks and the things coming, and you know, with everybody, it just started to work out. And then I discovered, and that was the last real thing of confidence for me, was that the motto of Brooklyn is Eendracht maakt macht. It means united we stand, which is exactly the same motto of Belgium. And it was written in Dutch, Old Dutch. So I said, you know, it's kind of coming home, right? So that was the final thing. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to work out. And then a fantastic team, everybody, you know, Michael Rocca is from New York, and the location scout is, you know, he lives in Brooklyn. So I was surrounded with people that could tell me right away if I was wrong or right, did it work or not. So it worked out. So, yeah.
You have a question?
Hi, I'm Valentina Valentini with Real Life Jane. Tom, the question's for you. What did you do to prepare for this role? Hang out in the hard parts of Brooklyn?
Say again?
What did you do to prepare for this role?
Wow. A lot of my preparation is in my head, you know? So what I do is I read the script once. And then what I do is I sit and I think about, I just think, you know, a lot. And then it's quite, every process is different for every job. And I shot Lock, a film called Lock, about during over 5 days, the week before we started shooting Animal Rescue, and I came off Mad Max. So my preparation time was like about 30 minutes.
Drop was called Animal Rescue.
Oh yeah, Animal Rescue, right? So I had about 30, you know, the flight to Brooklyn to prepare, having read the script and talked with Mikhail, and I knew me, and like a lot of. I mean, the downside to being successful and working is that you don't have a lot of time to prepare, to be fair. So I have to make some decisions fast. And they're human decisions. Like Bob, whether, you know, there's specifics to Brooklyn, there's specifics to postcode and zip code, I suppose is the word in there. But there's also human stories. There's a Greek tragedy going on in the drop for me. There's which is international. So so I start to meditate on character and what's going on and the different layers that are going on, and I start to think about what's interesting to play whilst trying to exfoliate a character center and work out why someone's doing what they're doing in order to get what they need. There's 3 different. It's all story-based. It's from analysis of text, but I don't have to go over the text with a fine toothpick and do it with pen and paper. I just start to think about the different layers of structure with each individual character and what I'm asking from each one. And so, with conversations with my colleagues, we start to unravel the investigation and start. After we had the costume fittings and the makeup and etc., that we set, you know, specific parameters to what Bob looked like, which you had very key. He had a very specific look for Bob. I was given my jacket and my facial hair, and I pushed out to go and explore, like very, very quickly. So the preparation was on the job, if that makes sense. So what's happening in the scenes is me working and researching Bob as we're moving, and does that make sense? So you have to make decisions very quickly on the floor because they have ramifications and knock-on effects. Now, as the investigation opened, and we're all on an investigation together, we start to synchronize. And each player, each of my colleagues brings something to the table, and having done their research and due diligence as well, the alchemy starts to take place. A lot of it is common sense. And as for accents and whatnot, I have a lot of friends from New York. And I listen, you know, we watch a lot of movies. There's a lot of information from New York that comes in, from whether it's rap music right through to, you know, the Labyrinth Theatre Company that I work with quite a bit. I have good friends there. So I have a sound that I want to find, which isn't necessarily specific to a zip code, but specific to trying to transmute the vision of Mikhail Roskam's vision and the script of the case file. There's there's a sound and a tonality that I want to create, which actually will provide an authenticity to character initially. I then will start to hang an accent of people that I'm working with. So if I'm working with Jimmy, I'm going to pick up his cadence. If I'm working with Matthias, I'm going to pick up his cadence. With Numi, the same. Like I do in life as well. When I speak to people, I will pick up and articulate myself best in a way that I know that that person might want to hear what I'm saying. So it becomes sleight of hand, and it's not necessarily an orthodox research or technical procedure, as you might want to hear. I just fake it to make it and hope that something sticks.
Dennis, this you developed a script from a short story that you wrote. Can you talk a bit about the journey of is that an easy one to do, to take a story that you've come up with and then have to rework it?
The short answer is yeah. It's a hell of a lot easier. I don't adapt my own novels because I find it akin to asking a surgeon, no matter how talented, to operate on his own kid. It's just, I'm not the guy to do it. I mean, I've just finished writing, say, a 400-page novel, and then you turn around and you say, hey, can you throw 80% of that out and write a 120-page script? And no, I would rather somebody who's really talented at that, which is not me, do that. So in the past, I did, Brian Helgeland did Mystic River, and he's brilliant at that. And Lita Kalogridis did Shutter Island. I mean, people who are really talented in adaptation. I'm not that guy. But when they said, well, we really like this, Mike LaRocca came to me and said, we really love this short story. Would you basically extrapolate on it? Would you open it up? Yeah, that's cool. You mean, I got this little nugget, and now I can just make everything, it's like, that's the spine. And now I get to build the rib cage, and I get to build the legs, and I get to throw some arms on it, and it's great. It was all, at that point, there's, it's the old line about corners. You can't really lose one on the table. So I felt like there wasn't any mistake I could make here. I could just try it. And I tried it and made a lot of mistakes, and then went through several drafts, and then got to a draft that could attract a director as good as Mikhail, and then Mikhail and I went through a couple of drafts, and then Tom came on, and I remember when Tom came on, I'd already seen a lot of Tom's work, and I went back and saw everything, and I said, I got to start cutting now, because he can do so much with his face that he's just, there's so, and this is something we haven't even discussed. The most amazing thing about this Tom's performance, now having seen it 3 times, is how every single thought that this character makes, that the plot hinges on, is there to see. You just don't see it when you're caught up in the moment. When you're caught up in the moment watching the film the first time, you're like, oh, wow, this is an interest. There's a lot of, but when you watch it the second time, you go, oh, that's when he decided to do that, and that's when he decided to do that, and that's when that motherfucker was a dead man, right there, right that moment. I mean, it's beautiful, and that's all from when you see where Gandolfini was a different move. When Gandolfini came on, I said, oh, I want to throw in some dialogue. Because the way that Gandolfini could turn street speech into a symphony, you know what I mean? Just boom, give him some extra stuff. And it's a real joy to write like that. And that's, this was the most, hands down, the single most positive screenwriting or teleplay writing experience I've ever had. It was great.
We have a question over here. Oh, over there.
Great for Nieuwsblad Online. Actually, this question is for Michael. When I first met you in Hollywood, we were at an event, and I had my little iPhone, and you had this fascination. You said, please take off the light bulb and put your 2 fingers in front of the lens, and made a beautiful picture. Bullhead has fantastic lighting and obviously great film. This one, again, you open up with beautiful lighting. Can you elaborate a little bit for us on how much that's important, and what kind of stamp as a director you wanted to put in the film The Drop, which was fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I was very happy that I could bring my friend Nicholas Karakatsanis. He was the DP on Bullhead, and I really wanted him to be with me on this journey. I rely on him very much, and because also he understands my vision. I study painting at the academy, so I am the visual and pictorial force of the image is very important to me and inspiring, and it is one of the ways I express my and tell the stories. the thing is, when we came to New York, we of course didn't have a real vision yet. It was first we got to see the city, and then Nicholas came with a story. Came with a painter called George Bellows, who is a great Brooklyn painter who did the Brooklyn city life in the early 20th century. And going to see a show, which was going at the Metropolitan at the time, we discovered, and I was already walking around in Brooklyn, that those colors, like the pistache green and a little bit of the cobalt blue and the burgundy red, and all those were in the paintings of George Bellows and still alive visually in Brooklyn today. And that's where we decided to start to use Bellows' vision of Brooklyn, pictorial vision, and to translate it into the image of our film, which you can see mostly reflected in the colder blues and the warmer sienna burned reds, and that was such and Nicholas and I were totally like, okay, this is the look of the film, and then the opening shot was, I mean, that was I decided to come in this world as through the eyes of a dog, low to the ground, just seeing feet, and when something happens higher than the knees, he has to pull up his head and see what's going to go on. And that was, for me, the visual metaphor of opening this film. Low to the ground, and then at a certain point, the first face we see is Bob Saganowski behind the thing. I don't know how you said it in English. Fancy kind of window protection, yeah. And that was, and then we were straight in that bar that we built completely it was an empty bar, out of business. Only the counter was real. I mean, was still there. And we kind of made the perfect bar, our perfect bar. It's like a combination of 3-4 bars that we loved. Therese Dupré, who did a wonderful job. And we built it. And from there on, we started to explore the rest of our universe and built it as much as we could, with that Brooklyn feel. And and a little detail, very special, is that I discovered that there were many, many plastic bags hanging in the trees because of Sandy. The wind had been blowing all that stuff. And they were starting to take those things down. And I said, you know what? We had on every exterior set, we had a bag of plastic bags with the blue, the red, and the white, plastic. And then if we had a frame, then we put a big stick and put some plastic bags in the trees to make it like this is post-Sandy Brooklyn. And that was literally like putting little details like a painter does. So, and Nicholas was great in that.
It was interesting. Like, I remember when we were talking, you see things like in a quite religious or symbolic way. You talk like, I remember you said to me that Nadia was like a broken angel.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I love that. I started to see your world and your universe. And like we talked about the dog, the puppy. You said he was like a saint, and he's almost like a healer. He builds the bridge between us in a way, and he's the one that makes it possible to communicate. And also on the day when you were like choosing pictures and framing and all that, I remember once there was a close-up of Tom, but there was like a shadow that kind of made a cross or something. It was like, and you showed it to me like super excited, look. And
they're
that
all
was
hidden
like,
in there.
it was beautiful to to discover and to start to see it. And I could really feel that you're an artist, that you start as a painter because you draw, you build these big paintings in a way.
Yeah, I love doing that.
Question
Thank
over
you,
here.
Naomi.
Oh, no question? Yeah, I was going to ask you about the camera angles and the low angles, and what made you decide to use the dog as the entry point? And actually, how many versions of Rocco did you use? The dogs. How many dogs?
There were 3 dogs.
3 dogs.
Yeah. And yeah, they were, because I think just the weekend before the shooting, we were counting the age of the dog, and the weekend of the shooting, the 3rd one had to be born, so we could use it at the end to replace the first one we had that would be too big by the end of the shooting. So it was kind of a calendar, We had the dog calendar.
It's a brutal reality. You have to do your close-up before you you grow too big.
Yeah, yeah.
You're only
yeah,
cute
yeah.
for like a month.
Yeah, it's true.
Do we have a question here? And then, and getting back to the entry point of the dog, there, the low angles and that, even the statue of the saint, all seen from that low angle. Is this sort of giving a voice to the voiceless again, or the dog as
I'm going to say yes now. No, it wasn't intended of the voice, the giving a voice to the voiceless, but it's, I mean, that's, you know, that's sometimes it's art, and the force of poetry is that sometimes you generate meaning to things. It's sometimes without realizing it. But I was very the low angle element was something that we were, of course, very consciously working with too, especially for the opening. That was I liked, you know, I wanted to show it's Brooklyn, and I found this picture. I was thinking, okay, let's use maybe that bridge. You know, we gotta go from that angle and go into Brooklyn deeper in. And I remember we were like looking at it, and there was a reflect, because it was all like snow and water and puddles. And then I looked in a puddle, and I saw the reflection of the bridge in the puddle, and I was like, well, this is cool. And then it started like, you know, wait a second. Of course, it's low angle. And then I was thinking of feet, because I was doing some. And then, very weirdly, Tom and Jerry. You know, you never see those faces, only ankles. You know, and that's that world. You know, starting on the, and then of course it was almost literal dog, and then of course close to the curb is it's a nice consequence of it that brings maybe an extra to it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. A question back here.
Question for Dennis Lehane. The director being Belgian, was that something to worry about for you, having worked with American directors before?
No, I wasn't terribly concerned with it, because there's just such a great, you know, I'm a big film aficionado, and so, you know, some of the best films about American culture and about the clashes within American culture have been made by foreign directors. You know, Witness was made by an Australian. Donnie Brasco was made by a Brit. So I think there's a strong history. Is sort of what I call the looking in through the glass view. Is as long as you know, you have a talented person in the first place, and I saw Bullhead, and that question was answered. So I wasn't too concerned about it, particularly once it was moved to Brooklyn. Because my fear with Boston is, you know, honest to God, my first fear when I hear film crews getting together to film one of my books in Boston is somebody's going to try the fucking accent, you know, and they're going to fuck it up, you know, they're just going to fuck it up. No matter, it doesn't matter. They'd get, you know, and so that was, that Brooklyn, well, I don't know what people from Brooklyn really sound like. I mean, I'm not that tuned to it. So no, that was the only that's the only worry I would have had. The moment you, I just believe in, it's been a career path for me straight down the line. Is I made a decision very early on in the sort of my encounters with Hollywood that I would only work with quality people. That was it. That's it's as simple as that. I don't sell directly to studios. I don't sell to any way, shape, and form in which you can leave the control of that theory. And then you figure the worst you're going to get is an honorable failure. And everybody's got one of those somewhere in their creative path. And that's it. You don't fear the honorable failure. You fear the Scarlet Letter with Demi Moore. That's what you fear. You know, I mean, you fear where they just completely didn't get it. So no, I sorry. It's, you know, I'm sorry. The only thing that movie was missing was a car chase. So that's it, you know. And so again, once I saw Mikhail's work, once we got on the phone, once we talked about this idea, you know, we had an idea right at the very beginning, this early conception that this was a fairy tale, a fairy tale in the true Germanic sense, a grim fairy tale. Once we came up with that idea, I felt like I'm in good hands. I don't have to worry about how he's going to handle Brooklyn. I think with this eye and with the cinematographer's eye, and I knew he was bringing in his cinematographer, and then all of a sudden we start going after the cast, you start to feel in really good hands. It's all good. And at that point, my job is to, again, the only thing I control is the moment to which I hand over my material. After that, my control is gone. So I control who I'm going to hand that material to. Once I do, I owe it to them, artist to artist, to give them my full support and my total faith, you know? So.
I think I may have a question for Naomi and Tom, as Matthias is not here at the moment. He's really one of our top talents in Belgium, and I wanted to ask both of you what makes him so unique, and where do you think lays his greatest qualities and artistic talents?
Well. Well, he's an alpha male, right? Who's sensitive. So that narrows him down to like probably like a handful of actors in the world, really. Anyway, he's without wanting to write him a love letter. But he
I've been
kind of
praising him
deserves
for
one.
days. I'm so tired of saying good things about him.
No, he deserves one.
No,
what makes
I
him
adore
good?
him.
You know, what makes him good? I mean, that's.
He's one of the best actors I work with. He's incredible.
Yeah, me too.
And like, you know, we improvised the scene in the kitchen in my house. And that it's very few people that I've worked with that you feel like you can go in and just see where it's gonna lead into. It like be completely open. I trust him with I trust him 100%. And he always surprised me, like, you know, and it was alive and moving. And he's very strong, very powerful, but very sensitive at the same time. And not competitive, like very generous, like so much love.
He's awake as well, you know.
Yeah.
He's awake and alive very much so. He doesn't phone anything in, so he's incredibly present. Something that is mind-blowing to me is he's speaking English is his second language, and his Brooklyn accent, as far as I'm concerned, is arguably the best accent in the film. And that just, to me, anyway, just from the outside looking in, and you know, is incredible. If you just think about what somebody's doing there, they're speaking in another language and putting a zip code on that language. That's not average. You know, that's just, and it's a result-based environment. That's a player. The fact that physically he's a masculine guy, but his sensitivity and his articulation and his sensuality is also awake. Provides you with an asset who has an incredible amount of range and intelligence as well that he can then articulate and physically manifest. So you're dealing with somebody who's very specifically an asset. Regardless of blowing smoke up his ass, the guy's, you know, he's in the top 10 of his age group in the world.
Yeah.
So if it's like, I mean, he's every right to be your most valuable player. You know what I mean? To be quite honest, the guy's shit hot. That's it. I'm not gonna give him. But I'd still take his roles if I go up for them. You know?
I'll add one thing to it as just as what we were talking about earlier, the idea of putting faith in people. I never had a single interaction with Matthias when the film was being made. We really got to know each other in the last couple of days. And so I never tipped my hand and never had a conversation with Mikhail about it at all either. I think Eric is the most tragic figure in the film. Yeah. And he's the most tragic figure in the story because even though he's the scariest and he's the most destructive, this is somebody who is quite aware that he is going insane. And he can't put his finger on his mind, and it's slipping away from him, and he knows it, and he's terrified of it. And I never said a word to him about that, and yet it's all in the performance. It's heartbreaking to watch that performance because you can see a guy who is collapsing in front of you and is just trying to hold on, and the only way he knows how to hold on is to just blow shit up, and that's what he does. But it's a really beautiful performance.
But it's also interesting because a lot of people, I've been doing interviews now for a couple of days, and they say like, yeah, my Eric Dietz, my ex-boyfriend, was like the mean, you know, he's the evil, he's like so brutal and scary. But if you look at it, you know, Nadia goes from that to Bob. And then I remember we were laughing one day, like, you know, it's not like she's going from a bad boy to a very good, like,
record
you know, she goes from one bad boy to another bad boy, but I love that it's like, it's all about a journey in a way, and it's, and the most desperate ones are the most dangerous ones.
Yeah.
All right, I'm afraid we're out of time. The Drop is a TIFF special presentation. It will have another public screening at the Princess of Wales Theatre next Saturday. Thank you all for being here. Thank you guys for coming.